All right, so the first thing I thought was this guy took a page right out of the Kickass UX playbook, writing a case study about something he's deeply, intimately familiar with. I really like that. Instead of having that stuff right there, link to it and have it be somewhere else for someone who may want to see it, right? So what's important is the insights, like what did you get out of it and how does that influence the next decision that you were going to make? This, as it stands today, is very visually striking. And as a hiring manager looking for a visual designer, it would probably speak to them. But the question I have is, who is this speaking to? And is that good for you, right? All right, so the first thing I thought was this guy took a page right out of the Kickass UX playbook, writing a case study about something he's deeply, intimately familiar with. I really like that because when he sells this in a hiring manager, in a hiring panel, he could speak to it and actually build that empathy for these people who have this problem. The first thing I thought as I'm scrolling through is he kind of buried the problem statement. Recently, I was looking to purchase a new vehicle, but I realized that my tip-based income made it difficult for lenders to approve me for loans. I would put that right up at the top, like real big. That's the problem statement, right? And right under that, I wonder if other bartenders are facing similar challenges. I almost flip that page around, flip that section around and put that up at the top, you know, or maybe even in that right-hand kind of area where he kind of gives a brief overview. You know, a product to help bartenders verify their tip-based income. Why? You know, if you've never worked in the service industry, you probably have no idea why that's important. I waited tables for a long time and bartended, so I know that that's a problem, but most people in this industry may have never done that. So I would try to figure out how to put that up at the top.
And which section is that, Jeremy?
On the black background, right underneath the thumbnail, or the thumbnail on the
this one right here?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, this
one.
Yeah,
that one. Yeah, so that second paragraph. Recently, I was looking to purchase blah blah blah. Right, like to me, that would almost be, that's a problem statement. Instead of putting the result up at the top, put the problem. Like, you know, bartenders can't buy stuff because they don't have credit history because everything's cash. You know, however you reword that, I don't know. But I think that's like build up, you know, get me hooked. That's like the first thing. Like that's a problem, and we're gonna fix it. Here's how we fixed it. The other thing I would say is scrolling through this, just overall, it feels like another boot camp case study checklist. Everything's on here, right? Like literally everything. I've got you know, competitive analysis. I've got low fidelity, high fidelity, prototypes, this, that, like literally everything. And it's long. It gets really long. A couple of things that I like to tell people, I feel like this is something I would encourage Chris to do, is instead of having that stuff right there, link to it and have it be somewhere else. And for someone who may want to see it, right? Like the competitive analysis is fine, but what's important is what you got out of that, not the competitive analysis itself. Because a lot of times at a UX designers are never going to do this. You're probably gonna have a marketing team going out and do this at a lot of companies, right? If you do it at all, you might not even do it. So what's important is the insights, like what did you get out of it? And how does that influence the next decision that you were gonna make? You know, what things did you see that you liked or didn't? And that could just be condensed into maybe a few bullet points or something. You know, strengths and weaknesses, for instance. Like, I don't need to see the images of the other apps. Like, you don't need to, that's kind of irrelevant. You could have like some, you know, I've seen people that have like big spreadsheets and like checklists and everything else. Like if somebody wants to see that, like put it on a hyperlink and send it to another page or an overlay or something to pull it up. I don't think it needs to be there. I like that. I like that they had the strengths and weaknesses there. I think that was really cool. But, you know, I don't know. I don't think it needs to take up so much space because it's already getting kind of long. And then that second part right there, that pink background, that's kind of, to me, what he's getting at is the competitive analysis doesn't verify the income. And that's the problem, right? So like, yeah, I can track my tips fine, but I need to prove to a lender that I have the money and I'm making money and I can pay you back. That's ultimately the problem. And that's what this competitive analysis to me actually says. So as a tip jar product, like one of the big things we need to figure out is how do we verify the income, you know, so that I can actually get a loan. He's got the persona there, just the workaholic. Is that how many people do they actually interview? I don't know. Maybe we should be drinking to that. There's probably not a lot
I was going to be saying cheers.
Yeah, cheers. There you go. Here, we'll do it now. But, you know, I don't know if it's really necessary. Again, like this is one of those things, like if you put that together, just tell me the insights. Like, what does that persona tell you, right? There's those goals and frustrations. That's important. And that should influence the next step when you start to actually putting some things down as a design. But, you know, having a giant section with all this, you know, taking up all this space, 1,000, 2,000 pixels, whatever it is, might not really be as impactful as most people would think. The illustration's cool. I mean, again, like I actually looked, let me see. I don't think he references Jess anywhere else. So he puts, oh, he does further down, like way further down. He mentioned Jess once, but it's one of those things like if you're going to use a persona, like reuse it. Tell me about Jess and make me feel for Jess. But you were actually selling this problem as your personal problem. Like this is a problem Chris has. And then we introduced Jess, you know, so it's like, I don't know that it's really necessary. I feel like this is something that he could just sell as like a personal problem that he's trying to solve. And then, you know, I feel like just sort of the standard stuff, like there's a lot of things in here, wireframe, like low fidelity, high fidelity. Is it really necessary? I don't know that somebody's going to really needs to go through every single iteration that you put on there. Like if you want to, if you think it's important, maybe include that in an index or hyperlink to it and have it open a modal or something secondary if I do want to see it. But again, I'm not really sure that that's like something that anybody really cares about. The clickable prototype, like how many people are going to click into that Figma file and click around. You know, it's very linear. I was clicking through it anyway, and it's like I can only click on one thing at a time. You know, I don't know. It's just at that point, I'm just like, show me the screens. I don't want to click. You know, I don't know that that's really valuable. Some people might like that if they care about how well he does with Figma, but for me personally, that was just something like I don't feel super impactful. And then the thing that got me, the last one is developer handoff. Like to me, what that says is like, that's not how we do this. Like your job, and I get it. This is all a pretend application, I'm sure. You know, so, but at that point, like, why even talk about it? You're not actually handing this off to a developer. You don't need to package up the stuff. And in real life, we wouldn't want to do that anyway. We want to collaborate and work together early and often. There shouldn't be a handoff in real life. So anyway, I don't know. That's just kind of my thing. And then the UI kit, like, again, this is sort of one of those things like, are UX designers really going to be creating UI kits all the time? Is that something somebody wants? Figure out like what companies you're trying to go for. And if that's something that they would expect you to do. And if it is, include it. And if it's not, I don't see it adding a ton of value. So
yeah,
anyway,
I kind of my with branding a little bit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Background, but at the same time, it's like, why is it even in a UX case study, right? And so it feels like a lot of graphic designers or designers who work with branding a lot love to include this section, but it just takes us out from believing that it's actually a UX designer, just because this is a totally different project. It's more like the design systems team would take care of that. It would already be an established pattern somewhere that exists in Figma already. So there is no need to do this. And by the way, I think that these buttons look like wildly accessible to me, from the white to the green. I'm not even sure if the enabled actually works. I don't know TBD, but definitely the overstay doesn't. Disabled is fine actually for it not to be accessible, but that's the only one that works here. And I think this might work. But anyway, yeah, I agree with you. That takes me out of the UX scope.
Yeah, 100%. I think.
What do you think, Colton?
Yeah, I was gonna say, for me, like, again, Chris, your personality shines through, and I can tell that you're a natural storyteller. Like the story you're telling in this, and the way that what you're highlighting made it very easy for me to scan this going down, even though it was long. I can tell you have attention to detail there. And again, that's one of the better ones I've seen, especially for a more junior UX designer. Like, I think you've done an excellent job with that. To Jeremy's point, it is kind of everything in the kitchen sink. Like, why did you do this stuff? Like, that's the main thing. And the other piece is like at this top section right here, I think alignment's a thing that I think I'd recommend you working on. You know, I'd recommend left aligning all this stuff, not centering it. And then on top of that, like this could be an overview section that does the overview of the problem, to Jeremy's point, and then also the solution. Because like what you're trying to do is you're trying to optimize for hiring managers and recruiters who are coming in, who are here, who only have 1 minute max to like really scan this and see if you're worth taking to the next round. And right now you're not allowing for this. Like this kind of section where you have the role, tools, timeline, skills. What does that actually help with? It doesn't help with much. And I don't recommend anyone have those sections, because it's not that helpful. Instead, what is helpful is, what is the problem you're solving? What's the context? What's the problem you're solving? And what's the solution? Like a very short section that has all that stuff, and then you allow people to get into the details. But what I'm missing in this is like the why behind your decisions. Why? You know, how you got to the next thing. Like, I can tell that your visual design for UI looks great. Like, from what I can tell, like, I looked at your prototype. There was only one small issue I saw with like things jumping around when they shouldn't have. But like, again, as a junior, it's a small detail. It's something that I would recommend fixing. But I think it wouldn't, again, take that much to get this up in quality. But right now it leaves me with more questions than I have answers, which is a problem. Like, you definitely need to have this. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I think I'm like lagging or something behind. But the thing that I worry for Chris here is this, as it stands today, is very visually striking. And as a hiring manager looking for a visual designer, it would probably speak to them. But the question I have is, who is this speaking to, and is that good for you, right? So if you're trying to get a job as a UX designer, even a generalist that does kind of, or even like a T-shaped kind of thing, you're speaking to the wrong audience here, and you're probably not going to impress someone who's looking for a UX designer. You're going to impress someone who's looking for a UI designer. And especially like a low maturity org, if you get a hiring manager who doesn't know to look for those things, you're going to get that guy or woman to reach out, and you're probably not going to be happy at that role. If you're looking for a UX job, right? So again, keep in mind like the audience, and like putting this out there to the wrong people and sending out the wrong signals. You may not be happy with the job that you get when you get that call back if you're not, putting that UX stuff in there and selling that versus the UI stuff.
But what makes you say that, Jeremy? I'm just very curious here, because like most of his thing is all about storytelling. It's mostly text, and right. So I love what you say. I would love to hear. Well,
I think for me, like, it's the why, right? Like we talked about, why did you do these steps? It's just like, I did this and this and this and this. And to me, what it says is it's another bootcamp case study almost, right? The checklist. I got to check the list. I need the wireframes, low fidelity, high fidelity, persona, competitive analysis, blah, 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 blah. And it doesn't show me that you're actively critically thinking about the activities that you're doing. You're just doing them because you were supposed to, and so it's visually striking. But I feel like one of the things I would be concerned with is a UX person who's like hiring for a UX designer who wants someone to ask really tough questions and, dig deeper and all those other things. It doesn't necessarily do that. The storytelling piece is there, and the branding piece and the personality definitely comes through. But, it's to me, like, aside from the visual, because there's a lot of people out there, hiring managers, that might not even care about the visual design piece of this. And they're like, well, it looks nice, but there's no substance. Not that there's no substance, but you get what I'm saying. Like, they might just pass on it because it aside from the visual piece, it's almost like every other bootcamp case study.
I see what you mean now. Yeah, but I feel like it's I feel like Chris overall. I mean, you did a really good job though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't let me say he didn't. Yeah.
It's amazing, right? I mean, I feel like this case study overall. So when I land on the hero section, but I hear what you say, right? Especially with the competitive analysis and the persona. If you do one thing, remove that persona made probably in Midjourney AI, which you highlight here.
Yeah, probably looks like
Midjourney. It doesn't help, right? But like when we look at this hero section, at least I'm like, okay, Chris knows his UI design. I'm not gonna have to worry about that. Yeah. It looks clean. A few small little details, but seriously, it would be very picky of me to say, because overall, this looks great. There is a good hierarchy, good sense of information architecture. So I'm like, okay, I feel like if I keep going, at least I'm not gonna end up with someone who has no clue how to do UI design, which nowadays you cannot be a UX designer that doesn't know its UI, right? So at least I feel comforted in that fact thanks to that without even scrolling anywhere. I think like both we've said, like this doesn't really work super well. It doesn't say much. So let's pull some other data here, but otherwise it would be a pretty good hero section that actually makes me want to scroll and go even deeper, especially considering the history we have with his homepage and with his about page. And we're like, this guy's personality is fun. I want to scroll. So at least he won the hook, I would say, right? And then the storytelling, again, is funny in many places. I think you do a good job also of not saying, like here you say research and exploration, sure, but there are places where, like bartender face challenges versus just saying the problem or the challenges. It's a bit more exciting and more fun in the H1s and H2s, and that's something we don't see that often. Again, like here again, it's a bit boring, right? Competitive analysis, competitors, sure. But defining a product is a bit slightly more interesting. Framing the problem, we don't see that often actually. Colton and I are huge advocates for actually framing the problem and doing it in a way that helps indicate the business objective, the user objective, all that stuff. So it's pretty cool to see. Maybe just one how might we would have been better than three. But it feels like he has the markers that makes me say, okay, he knows what he's talking about. Slightly green, but at least he knows his UI. His storytelling is good. So yeah, I mean overall, and again, his wireframes, his low fidelity wireframes are really clean. Again, that reinforces the fact that I'm like, okay, he knows his UI design. He's like 90% there. So yeah, I mean, seriously, I mean, I'm kind of impressed. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think like I'm being nitpicky, I think, with a lot of this stuff. And I think it's a great foundation. Like just swap the stuff around and you're better than like 80% of the portfolios that I've seen out there for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Agreed.
I think one other thing I was going to mention is like, you know, it's clear that Chris cares about design, UI design, visual design, branding and things like that. I think Chris, really, you have got to go and find the right companies that you want to work for. Because if you go out and find a company that's already got a design system, you're not going to be able to do any of that stuff. You're going to, you may, I'm not going to say you are, you may feel blocked. I don't know what the right word is. Not creative or whatever. Like you can't explore and do those things. You might feel very restricted. Restricted is the right word. You know, so I would go and make sure you're going out, reaching out to people and stuff, talking to people that work at some of these companies before you apply for the job or after you apply, but before you accept the offer, to make sure that you would be happy there. Because to what I see here, maybe Chris might be great at like a digital agency. You know, an agency that's actually working on different products every 6 months or something or every year for different clients, as opposed to in-house designer at an enterprise. He might be bored. Yeah. So, you know, be very sure you're like applying for the right company, because as an enterprise UI or UX designer, you might be bored. So just kind of go and explore those options and see, and make sure that you're able to take your skill set and you know, grow at the right.
I love that. That is such good feedback. So with all that, we were way over as far as our 12 or 13 minutes, whatever you put down.
Oh, sorry.
Jeremy, what would you give this on a scale of 1 to 5?
I'm going to give this one a 4. Because I think the foundation again is there. It is better than a lot of stuff I've seen. I think if you just condense some things, remove some things, added hyperlinks to places, rearrange some things, kept everything visually the same, you would do great, I think. So I'm going to give this one a 4.
Ludovic.
Yeah, I think if we take the hypothesis that he's a junior, then this is a 4, right? It's like there is a lot of great storytelling, his visual design is good. At least I know that he's not like crazy green. I know that he knows his stuff and he's passionate about it, because his eye for detail shows right away. And so I'm like, okay, he cares, right? And that really comes across. So yeah, I think a 4 also is good, considering if he's a junior designer, right? If he had more years of experience, maybe not. But if he's a junior designer, absolutely a 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm going to be a little bit more harsh on this, but with a caveat. I'm going to give him a 3. The caveat is I don't think it'd take much to get to 5. That being like layout changes, because there's definitely some layout issues with the page. Like just general visual fixes across the board for this. So I can tell he has the craft for the actual UI side of his, you know, of the product he worked on, but not entirely for this page. And so I think that needs to be reworked. I think, to your point, Jeremy, condensing down sections, like his storytelling is great, but just making it a little more streamlined, putting the overview section at the top, making it clear that this is a conceptual project. And then like, because the bottom section almost implies that this got developed, but it didn't. And that feels a little disingenuous. And so I feel like all of those things that we've talked about, if you just went through and fixed those things, this would quickly become a 5, and it'd be really impressive for being a junior designer. So, Chris, I hope that doesn't come off as harsh. I really do think you're close. There's some things to fix, but based on your personality, man, you got this.
One other thing I wanted to throw out there too is the quotes. I love the bartender quotes. I don't see that a lot. Like quotes from actual research. I see a lot of pictures of sticky notes, but I don't see anybody abstracting that out and throwing the quotes there. What I would do is I would take them out of the carousel and I would turn them into cards or something and actually put like 3 or 4 up on in a grid or something and show them that way, as opposed to sticking them in a carousel. But I love that, you know, and that's also part. And so I think you could probably have something like that instead of the persona section, you know. 'Cause I don't know how.
100%.
Persona section is. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that's unique. I've never seen in a junior designer that kind of quote carousel like that. I like that a lot. I really dig that.
Yeah,
big time
for sure.